All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a hidden 70-year-old network that is quietly but constantly humming in the background of our lives. It's a massive, unbelievably complex system that quite literally powers our entire modern global economy, and yet it operates almost completely out of sight. Seriously, take a second right now. Just look at the objects right in front of you. The smartphone you're probably holding, the clothes you're wearing, the coffee in your mug, or maybe the parts inside the car parked outside your window. Almost none of these things were originally designed to travel the way they did to actually reach you. And here's the wildest part. Almost nobody who owns these everyday items has ever actually seen the system that delivered them. Well, get ready for a staggering reality check. Over 90% of absolutely everything traded in the entire world travels by ship. 90% by volume. Let that sink in for a second. It's an absolutely foundational pillar of modern human existence, and it relies entirely on just one remarkably simple invention. Literally, at this exact second, right now, there are roughly 20 million standardized steel containers crossing the world's oceans. 20 million. These boxes act like a massive invisible machine, ferrying the lifeblood of global commerce. They're out there relentlessly moving, day and night, forming the hidden skeleton of the economy. But to really understand how we actually got to a point where 20 million steel boxes are just floating out there right now, we have to rewind a bit. Section 1. The idea that changed everything. 1956 and the paradigm shift. Okay, so before 1956, we had this incredibly painful system called break bulk shipping. And wow, was it a nightmare. It was painfully slow, completely chaotic, and honestly pretty dangerous. Goods were literally shoved into random, irregular crates, barrels, sacks, whatever, and dock workers had to hand load every single piece, one by one. A single ship could take over a week just to load up. Oh, and theft? Absolutely rampant. The costs were astronomical. But then, enter this trucking entrepreneur named Malcolm McLean. He had this brilliantly simple, totally radical idea. What if we just didn't unpack the truck trailer? What if we could lift the entire standardized steel box straight off the truck onto a ship and then seamlessly drop it onto another truck at the destination? And boom, the impact was practically overnight. Once these containers were standardized under ISO guidelines back in the 50s and 60s, cargo handling times didn't just decrease a little bit, they basically fell off a cliff, dropping by roughly 90%. A grueling process that used to take well over a week was suddenly getting knocked out in just a few hours. So here's the real kicker. That total collapse in shipping costs and time, that is exactly what made modern offshore manufacturing possible in the first place. Because shipping suddenly became so phenomenally cheap and efficient, a factory could actually afford to make a product for a customer located on the exact opposite side of the planet. Container shipping didn't just make trade cheaper, it practically invented the modern global economy as we know it. Section 2. Anatomy of a journey, from factory floor to your front door. Let's actually track one of these steel boxes through its 5-step physical journey. Step 1, the factory. Usually somewhere like East Asia, where a huge chunk of consumer goods start out. The container gets packed tight, securely sealed, and slapped with a unique tracking number. Step 2, the inland journey. A truck or train hauls this sealed box to a massive seaport. And because it's never opened, goods move super fast, and that crazy theft from the old break bulk days, basically gone. Step 3, the port. Here, massive gantry cranes, we're talking over 100 meters tall, lift the containers and stack them like giant steel Lego bricks, sometimes 9 or 10 high, both above and below the deck. Step 4, the voyage. The ship crosses the ocean. It usually takes about 3 to 5 weeks from an Asian port to the US, depending on conditions. And finally, Step 5, arrival and distribution. The destination port's cranes just run the process in reverse, the box drops onto a train or truck, and boom, the goods are scattered across the continent, sometimes hitting store shelves just days after hitting land. Just wrap your head around the sheer geographic scale of that for a second. This perfectly choreographed door-to-door dance effortlessly moves a product roughly 12,000 kilometers. 12,000. And the absolute craziest part? It does all of this while adding almost nothing to the final retail price you pay. It's a tiny, tiny fraction of what that old chaotic shipping cost even 50 years ago. Section 3. The hidden ecosystem. The infrastructure nobody sees. To make this 12,000-kilometer magic happen, there is a mind-boggling macro-level infrastructure at play. Right now, there are more than 55,000 merchant ships trading internationally, linking up over 1,200 ports around the world. And the size of these vessels, it's absurd. The largest ones afloat today, like the Ever Ace, are about 400 meters long. That's 4 entire football fields in length. One single ship of this class can haul over 20,000 containers in one trip. To put that in historical perspective, one modern megaship carries more cargo capacity than the entire global merchant fleet did back in the early 1900s. No joke. But look, it's not just giant pieces of floating steel. There's a massive human and technological stack behind this. That simple 20-foot box relies on a global workforce of roughly 1.5 million seafarers. Port activities alone pump out an incredible $1.5 trillion in GDP and employ about 60 million people globally. Overall, maritime transport drives about $2.7 trillion in annual economic activity, and it's getting super futuristic too. We're talking driverless container handling vehicles, AI-assisted cranes, digital twin tech to flawlessly simulate and optimize fleet logistics, and new ships being built to run on alternative fuels like methanol to slash emissions. Section 4. The Achilles heel. The fragility behind the scale. But for all its scale and crazy sci-fi tech, what actually happens when this massive, finely tuned machine just stops? It's a terrifying question to think about because honestly, the system is incredibly fragile. Block a single choke point, a vital canal, a narrow strait, or trigger a major port strike, and you send disastrous ripples through the entire global supply chain in a matter of days. We've seen it happen recently. Fleets get forced to divert around entire continents, adding over a week to journeys, causing freight rates to completely skyrocket, which, eventually hits you and me right in the wallet. And then there's just the raw power of the ocean itself. 10,000. That's the estimated number of shipping containers lost at sea every single year, swept overboard in massive storms, quietly sinking to the dark ocean floor with whatever laptops, sneakers, or goods they were carrying. It's a pretty stark reminder that, despite all our tech, we are still battling the elements of nature. Section 5. The paradox of the steel box, hiding in plain sight. So, when you think about the shirt on your back or the phone in your pocket, remember that they moved inside a steel box on a ship you'll probably never see through highly secure ports you'll never visit. This system is so remarkably good at hiding its own vast complexity that it's become completely invisible to the billions of us who rely on it literally every single day. And you know what? That invisibility isn't a flaw. That is its absolute greatest achievement. We only ever notice it when something goes wrong. I want to leave you with this one final thought for this explainer. In our digital age, we completely obsess over code and AI and the cloud. But the most important infrastructure in the modern economy isn't a website. It's not an app. It's a 70-year-old steel box and the silent, humming, incredibly vast network built to move it around the entire planet, nonstop, forever. Next time you pick up your coffee cup or check your phone, take a second to appreciate the magnificent, invisible journey it took just to get to your hands. And it really makes you wonder, if a simple steel box quietly engineered the entire global economy, what other invisible systems are secretly running your life right now?